members, Representative Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to Senate Bill 1, House Draft 1. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 2 days ago on second reading, I pointed out to you factual inaccuracies in the committee report. Again, on page 7 of the Standing Committee Report number 4, it clearly states that the United States Supreme Court's recent decision in United States versus Windsor held the Federal Defense of Marriage Act unconstitutional. Mr. Speaker, again, I submit to you that the Supreme Court's decision in the Windsor case only held Section 3 unconstitutional, not the entire Defense of Marriage Act. There was no rebuttal whatsoever to any of the contentions I made regarding this Standing Committee report, which leads me to only one of two things. Number one, capitulation by the majority. Number two, admission that what I'm saying was correct. So, Mr. Speaker, as I continue on going through the committee report, and with all due respect to you, Mr. Speaker, I am offended at what is in the Standing Committee report. As those of you know, this Standing Committee report will forever go into the history as our legislative intent, and yet it is replete with factual inaccuracies, misrepresentations, and incorrect information. First and foremost, Mr. Speaker, on page 3, public hearing and testimony. Official public notice of your committee's public hearing on this measure was posted on October 28, 2013. The text of the governor's original proposed legislation was first released to the public by the governor on August 22, 2013. Mr. Speaker, I take great umbrage to that because, quite frankly, we all know that this bill that we're voting on, Senate Bill 1, this was not the governor's bill. Senate Bill 1 was, in fact, posted on October the 22nd at 5 o'clock p.m., 5.5 days before the first hearing. No wonder the public doesn't trust us. This committee report is inaccurate and it's misleading. The fact of the matter is there was a bait and switch regarding the bill that was heard before the public. So I take great umbrage to what is in this committee report. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I have never seen a committee report that goes out of its way to quote one particular testifier. It goes on and on about what Justice Levinson said. And with all due respect to Justice Levinson, he talks about what was actually in the language of House Bill 117, which actually led to the constitutional amendment posed to the voters in 1998. And while I must respectfully disagree with Justice Levinson, there can be no doubt that what the language that was in House Bill 117 was not, in fact, the language which was printed in the constitutional amendment and given to the people to vote on in 1998. Mr. Speaker, Senator Sakamoto, former state senator, testified, registration number 2576, submitted testimony making it clear that on House Bill 117, which eventually led to constitutional amendment in 1998, he quoted the language from the two co-chairs of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate. Senator Matsunaga claimed, and this is directly from the Journal, quote, essentially, it accomplishes what we sought to achieve last year. That is, marriage licenses will be limited to opposite-sex couples. But coupled with the passage of House Bill 118, non-traditional couples will be provided access to substantially similar economic marital rights and benefits, unquote. Senator Chumley, who was also a co-chair, talks about the 1998 amendment. Quote, the amendment before us today is as finely tailored as we could accomplish. The people will decide on the simple issue of whether marriage should be limited to couples of the opposite sex. The courts are not insulted, equal protection is not conditioned, and no religious or social dogma is adopted. Instead, an affirmative expression of our understanding of marriage is incorporated into the supreme law of the land, unquote. Senator Sakamoto states in his written testimony, as you will see by reviewing what was said on the Senate floor in 1997, the constitutional amendment was proclaimed as the vehicle to limit marriage to opposite-sex couples. The people voted with that in mind. So it is Senator Sakamoto, who was a part of the 1997 legislature, that again, the language that was voted on was clear to the people. You know, it's just been so upsetting these past couple of days. There's been allegations of people going back and forth. And why are we doing this? You know, some of my colleagues have said to me, well, we're doing this because we have no choice.
Speaker, I yield my second time.
So ordered.
Thank you. Some of my colleagues have said, we have to do this before the courts do it. I would submit, Mr. Speaker, let's look at the facts. They're referring to the Jackson versus Abercrombie case. Let's look at the facts. The state won in the Jackson versus Abercrombie case. And yet, yes, that case is on appeal with the Ninth Circuit. But the fact of the matter is, if the state loses, they can still always appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. And I would remind members of this body, no court in the United States, including the U.S. Supreme Court, has ever said same-sex marriage is a fundamental right. So quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, I feel quite confident that we shouldn't lie to the public and give off the impression that we're passing this bill on behalf of the churches for the exemptions, because again, how much more can they take? You know, Mr. Speaker, I want to get to the hearing very quickly. You know, many people will say that the Senate was terse and they were cruel, that they didn't hear the public. You know, Mr. Speaker, while I absolutely appreciate the fact that we gave the people the opportunity to testify, I would submit that we were masochistic. We listened to 57 hours of testimony, and within 2 hours, we came up with a decision. And again, overwhelmingly, resoundingly, the message that resonated was vote no, kill the bill, let the people decide. It was not amend the bill. That was not the message. And so again, Mr. Speaker, I feel that a great injustice is occurring today. You know, Mr. Speaker, over the past couple of days, we've all received hate emails. I've been called everything under the sun. I've received every hate email in the world, every threat in the world. You know, on the first day of the hearing, a well-known member of the LGBT community followed me outside every time and verbally assaulted me, to the point where I had to contact the sergeants and ask them for protection. You know, Mr. Speaker, this issue has brought out the ugly in our society. And I feel that we can no longer, by going in this direction with the process, we have failed the people. You know, rising tides are supposed to float all boats, but instead the equality of one minority is balanced on the backs of others. What people saw over the past 12 days is that democracy is democracy in name only. A democracy that only cares what people think when it is convenient for them. The people came to speak and were rebuked by what they saw as unsympathetic elected officials, ones that were called pilau. Mr. Speaker, I refuse to believe that this is a democracy in name only. I refuse to believe that government has failed the people. And in fact, we still have a factual situation that exists, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 5, that would allow a constitutional amendment for the people to vote, is still alive. It is still in the Judiciary Committee. It has been referred to the Judiciary Committee and the Finance Committees. We still have the ability to give people a chance to vote on this issue.
Your time is up.
My time.
So ordered.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative. So, Mr. Speaker, I refuse to believe that democracy is broken. I want to believe in our government. But what we've displayed over the past 12 days doesn't give people a lot of hope. Mr. Speaker, I'm asking you once again, House Bill 5 would give people the right to vote. That has been the chant over the past 12 days. Respectfully, Mr. Speaker, I ask you to prove to these people that democracy is not democracy in name only, that we are a government of the people and by the people, that we listen to the people of the state of Hawaii. Mr. Speaker, for these reasons, I once again renew my request to you and the Judiciary Chair and the Finance Chair to please hear House Bill 5 and let the people vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.